see if she's on here before I say it. We did a contest. Our testing best testers were Avina and Rihanna. So good job to those ladies. They're on here. We had Miss Ava Reuter was the winner of our car decorating contest. Her car was awesome. If you haven't seen it, you can go look in the Facebook group. There's pictures of it posted there. The last one, she's on like every match shot, so I'm surprised I don't see her on here yet. But I'll announce it now. Maybe she'll get on later. I'll announce it again at the end if she's not here. But our she is. I see her now. Okay. So the winner of the promotion contest. So remember, everybody who posted a video of a family member tying on their belt and promoting them got a star. And we had a contest for the best promotion, and that was Miss Hannah Pinero. So let's clap for Hannah. She had a really cool one. Her dad promoted her just like an instructor, and she had some Bruce Lee playing in the background, which was pretty cool. So she was our winner. I'll post that video later so you guys can all see that. But Hannah, good job. And you guys can come by the studio this week to pick up your gift card, okay? To Yumi Fusion. All right. I think that's it for upcoming stuff. Oh, summer camp is opening June 1st as well. I didn't say that, but that is opening June 1st. So if anyone is going to be coming to our summer camp, spaces are going to be limited. We're going to kind of design our camp around the number of people that we have and things like that. So you do have to pre-register. Otherwise, spaces will be limited there. But that will be starting June 1st also. I did mention, and there's a few more people on now, we are not going to have mat chats on Friday. So it'll be Monday through Thursday at 11:30 mat chats. I think that's everything. The last thing, and keep an eye out for the schedule. I'm going to post some updates because we are reopening June 1st at a certain capacity. The last thing is that this week is Buddy Week. So who has a friend they're bringing to class today? Who invited a friend to class today? Good. Okay, you guys all still have time to, so I want you to think of one person. Think of one friend, a cousin, someone from your class maybe that you miss seeing that you could reach out to and invite to come to karate class with you today. So just give them the meeting code and they can hop on there. All right. With all of that being said, we are going to go ahead and do stars and then hop into our book. I did give everyone a little bit of homework. We're still in the same chapter. So, and this is kind of how we're going to do this. We're going to finish up the chapter today. And then tomorrow during Mat Chat, we're going to discuss the homework assignment. We're going to have everyone share theirs. And we're going to talk about some applications of the chapter. So how the things that we're learning, we can use at karate and school, at home, all of that kind of stuff. So everyone who did their homework, awesome job. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. So if anyone did their homework, you don't need to tell me today. We're going to go over it tomorrow. Okay, now stars. Everybody get your character building sheets ready. If you have character building sheets done for today, and raise your hand. Let's do those quickly before we start our chapter. Who has them? Mr. Landon. Landon, how many do you have?
One.
Which one is it?
Building a character 4.
Very nice. Clap for Landon. Good job, Landon. All right, Mr. James, how many do you have?
One.
One? Which one is it?
The book club sheet.
Very good. Clap for James. Very nice. Who else has some? Miss Aubrey. How many do you have, Aubrey?
1, 2, 3, 4.
4. Good. And which ones are they?
Building character sheets 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Very nice. Good job, Aubrey. Let's clap for Aubrey. Good. Okay. Who else has some character building sheets to turn in that they did over the weekend? I think that's it. All right. If I missed you, unmute yourself and say something now. All right. Then we're going to go ahead and go into our chapter. So we are in the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If you have committed to doing them all, we do have the books in here. If not, you can go buy your own. But if you did make a commitment to doing this with us, then you can come pick up your book any day this week. I almost said yesterday, but it was Friday. Friday, I asked everybody to read over the chapter that we're going into. You guys still have another day to do that because we're still going to be discussing this chapter for one more day. So if you have not read over it, please do. And we'll talk about the homework again at the end. So this chapter is called Inside Out. Let me get to the front of it. Okay, this chapter is called Inside Out. Says part 1, paradigms and principles, and then Inside Out. This is the chapter that we're doing. So try to read over that chapter tonight if you have not. Don't forget, if you're reading this, you can use this for your book club sheet for your character building sheets as well. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and go to our PowerPoint. Let's see. All right, can you guys see that? Perfect.
Yes.
Okay. All right, good. All right, so we are gonna just go ahead and hop into this. So the first thing where we left off, we talked a little bit about the difference between the personality and character ethics last week. Now we're going to talk about the power of a paradigm. So I think we talked about the definition last week, maybe not. But who knows what a paradigm is? Who can tell me, what do you think a paradigm is? Anybody? Oh, I can't see everybody. It's so difficult with the screen sharing not to be able to see everybody. Okay, so we'll talk about it a little bit, but basically,
I know.
Go ahead, Miss Kathy.
Okay. So a paradigm is, it comes from the Greek. It's used today to mean a model, a theory, or a perception.
Very good.
Or
Yeah.
a frame of reference.
Good. So it's a scientific term. It's used in science a lot. It's kind of your perception, the way that you see something. So if you think, okay, the color yellow. There are a lot of people that love the color yellow, and there are a lot of people that don't like the color yellow. That's your perception. That's the way that you see the color yellow, and that's fine. There's no right or wrong perception. But we're going to kind of talk today about how that perception, how you see things, how that paradigm is what the word is, can kind of hinder you a little bit. Okay, so character ethic and personality ethic are examples of social paradigms. So these two ethic theories basically are different ways that we see things in society. Okay, so we just talked about that. What is a paradigm? So just like Miss Kathy said, she had it right out of the book. It's a model, theory, perception, frame of reference, or assumptions you make about something. And I like that the word assumptions was in there when it talks about this too, because it's not just it's the way that you see something. And with that, the assumptions that you make about someone or something. And that's the part that gets tricky, because it's natural for us. It's the way our brain remembers things, to compare and to assume and those kinds of things. But we have to remember that what we're assuming is part of our perception. Okay, so paradigm is the way that we see the world, the way that we perceive, the way that we understand, the way that we interpret things. Okay, so it's kind of like a map. I like the way he talks about this. It's kind of like a map. So the map itself is not the territory, like the land. So if you have a map of Florida, the map is not Florida. Florida is Florida. The map is explaining Florida. It's explaining certain aspects of it. So that's what a paradigm is. It's kind of like a map of it's the map. It's not the actual territory. So it's not the character traits that you have. It's the way that it's not the way something is. It's the way that you're seeing it. Does that make sense? So think about a map is, if you're looking at a map of Florida, you're not looking at Florida, you're looking at a description of Florida, kind of a summary or an outline of Florida, right? So if I am looking at a person or a situation or whatever it is, my paradigm, the way that I'm seeing it, is kind of like a map of it. I don't know what the background is behind that situation or that person. I only know the map. So just make sure you take that into consideration with everything that you do. Another funny thing that he kind of talks about, or funny analogy he makes, is, could you imagine a map of Detroit that was accidentally labeled Chicago? So could you imagine if you guys went to go visit a city you've never been to, and you're looking at this map, you go to Chicago, you're looking at this map, it says Chicago, and you're trying to find your way around the streets, and you're like, okay, let's look for First Street. And there is no First Street, because what you're actually looking at is a map of Detroit. That would mess you up. You would not be able to figure out anywhere that you're going. So I like that analogy, because he's saying it's kind of the same thing. This is just the way that you perceive it. So if you don't have the full understanding of the situation or of that person or of what just happened, you can't fully understand the concept. And sometimes our perceptions are wrong. And so just remembering to stay open. Okay. He says there are a lot of maps in our heads of the way things are. So whatever we're thinking in our heads about the way things are, that doesn't mean that is the way they are. That's the way that we see them, the way that we perceive them, the way that we think things are. Okay, so I have an exercise that we're going to do. Okay, I want for all of the girls to close their eyes just for about 30 seconds. Every single girl, close your eyes. And all the boys, I'm going to show you a slide. Okay, so all the girls close their eyes. Go ahead. Close them really tight. You guys will get to look at the next one. And all the boys, I want you to look at this slide. Now I want you to think about what you see. Maybe write a little note. Girls, keep your eyes closed. Keep your eyes closed. Okay, so all the boys, think about what you see in this picture, okay? I'll give you guys 10 seconds to look at it. Maybe think about how old you think she is, what you think she's wearing, different things like that. Okay. Now, boys, close your eyes. Girls, open your eyes. Boys, close your eyes. Make sure you're muted, guys. Okay, so all the boys have their eyes closed. Girls have their eyes open. I'm going to show you guys this one. Okay, look at this picture. Tell me what you see. Tell me how old you think she is. Don't tell me. Don't tell me. Think in your head. You can write it down.
What?
Is unmuted, guys. Please
Yes,
make. Oh, Caleb Ricks, I'm muting you. Okay. All right. So girls are all looking at the slide, right? Okay. Now everyone can go ahead and open your eyes. Everyone, open your eyes. Okay. Now let me make sure. I'm going to turn our chat on. See if I can do it on here. I don't think I can while we're in here. All right. Let's see. Chat. Yes, I can. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to. Okay. The chat's turned on, so you can send me a message. What I want you guys to do, I'm going to show you this next slide, and I want you to tell me what you see in this picture. Okay, so send me a message in the chat. How old do you think this woman is? What do you think she looks like? What does it look like she's wearing? What kind of roles do you see her in? Like, what kind of person do you think she is? Everybody send me a message telling me what you see in this picture. Can you guys send me a chat? Is it working? Yes, it is. Okay. I'll give you guys 30 seconds. I want everyone to send me at least answer one of those questions, what you think about this person. I love this. This is one of the, this is such a cool thing. So this was actually a study or an experiment done by a Harvard professor. What he did is I showed everybody two different pictures. He passed it out cards and did the same thing. And then he put this picture on the main screen. Okay, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to show you guys what the other people saw, because I have about half of you guys telling me it's a young woman with pearls around her neck, wearing like a feathery scarf or things like that, really fashionable. And that's what it says in the group. A lot in the experiment. A lot of people are saying like she was really pretty. Someone in here said that she looked like a model, that she's probably in her 20s, things like that. Then the other half of you guys were like, she's an old lady. She, someone says she looks like a pilgrim. She is in her 80s, things like that. So Here's why people have different perceptions of this. And in the study, that the experiment that the professor did in his Harvard class, he had the class like yelling at each other. Like the half of the class was like yelling, saying, no, she's an old hag. What are you talking about? And then the other half's like, no, she's beautiful. Like I'd take her out on a date, that kind of thing. I'm going to show you the pictures and you'll understand why. Okay. Oops, let me go back. Okay, so this is the first picture that some of you guys saw. So this was setting your perception for this image, so that most of the people who saw this picture saw a young, beautiful woman. And then all the girls saw this picture. A lot of their perception was set to see an old lady, right? So when you look at this picture, which is a combination of the two, some people you can see the old lady and some of you can see the young woman. And a lot of that is because of your perception being set in the beginning.
Oh, I see it now.
Isn't that weird? You can see both, right? So I want to go back to the old lady. Okay, so the lady, this is eyes, her big nose, her mouth is right here.
Dad knows.
And when you get here, yeah, please don't draw on the screen. But if you're here, you can see it. If you saw the old lady, this is her eye, this is her big nose, this is her mouth. Now, if you saw the young woman, you're thinking this is her eye, this is her petite nose, this is her chin, this is a necklace. So yeah, I think that's a pretty cool experiment. But it just goes to show that sometimes our paradigms, our perceptions can deceive us. So sometimes we get an idea of something, we think one way about something, we see something in a certain way, and then you're not as open to what the possibilities could be. All right, good job, everybody. Thank you guys who participated. Okay. All right, Jonathan, please mute yourself. Okay, so this is, it was saying you were conditioned. So whatever picture you looked at in the first 10 seconds conditioned you to what you saw. Now, there's still a few of you guys who even in the other picture, no matter which picture you saw first, still saw the young woman or still saw the old woman or whatever. But for the majority of you guys, that was pretty cool. All right, the power of a paradigm shift. Okay. So a paradigm shift is when your understanding and your perception changes. So when you looked at the last picture, you saw, most of you guys saw what you saw in the picture beforehand, okay? Then when I showed you both the pictures, like Jonathan was like, oh, I see it. That's a paradigm shift. When you realize, oh, there's another way of looking at this, or, oh, I was looking at it wrong. That's a paradigm shift. Please do not write on the screen or I'm going to remove you from Mat Chat, guys. Do not write on the screen. Okay. So who read in this chapter the story of the man on the train? Oh, that is such a good story and such a good example of a paradigm shift. It's my favorite. I actually shared that story when we were talking about the book, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. I talked about that story there. So I'm going to read the story. It is one of my favorites for kind of a lesson in a story. All right. So, okay, I remember a mini paradigm shift I experienced one Sunday morning on a subway train in New York. People were sitting quietly, some reading newspapers, some lost in thought, some resting with their eyes closed. It was calm and peaceful. Then suddenly, a man and his children entered the subway car. The children were so loud and rambunctious that instantly the whole climate changed. The man sat down next to me and closed his eyes, apparently oblivious to the situation. The children were yelling back and forth, throwing things, even grabbing people's papers. It was very disturbing. And yet the man sitting next to me did nothing. It was difficult not to feel irritated. I could not believe that he could be so insensitive as to let his children run wild like that and do nothing about it, taking no responsibility at all. It was easy to see that everyone else on the subway felt irritated too. So finally, with what felt like an unusual amount of patience and restraint, I turned to him and said, "Sir, your children are really disturbing a lot of people. I wonder if you couldn't control them a little bit more." Who thinks that he was out of line asking that? I don't necessarily. The kids were disturbing everybody, but I'm going to keep going. Okay. The man lifted his gaze as if to come to a consciousness of the situation for the first time and said softly, oh, you're right. I guess I should do something about it. We just came from the hospital where their mother died about an hour ago. I don't know what to think, and I guess I don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to handle it either. Could you imagine what he felt in that moment? To think, what do you guys think? How did you feel just hearing that from what you were thinking in the beginning and then hearing that situation and understanding the background? That is a paradigm shift. That's you changing your perception. So first you're irritated. You're thinking, I would probably say something to them too. They're disrupting everybody. They're being rude. They're being rambunctious. The dad doesn't even care. He's just ignoring it. It's not right. But then when you understand, so we have this vision of what the situation is, but when you actually understand the situation, your perception changes, right? You're probably feeling some sympathy, some empathy for the dad and for the kids, a lot of understanding. Okay, so could you imagine what I felt in that moment? My paradigm shifted. Suddenly I saw things differently. And because I saw differently, I thought differently. I felt differently. I behaved differently. My irritation vanished. I didn't have to worry about controlling my attitude or my behavior. My heart was filled with the man's pain. Feelings of sympathy and compassion flowed freely. Your wife just died. Oh, I'm so sorry. Can you tell me about it? What can I do to help? Everything changed in that one instant. Who in here has ever had a situation like that? Maybe a situation where you're feeling one way and then you understand, you're like, oh, I get it. Raise your hand if you've ever maybe been mad or irritated or annoyed by something someone did or something someone said or anything in front of you. And then you understand the situation and you realize, wow, I should have been more understanding in the beginning, right? Okay, I love that. That's a sad story. It's not a happy story, but it's a good lesson in that story. Okay.
Well,
Yes.
can I add something to that? We've had situations in the studio like that. And we've had sometimes parents judging like other people and like, oh, look at their kids. They're running wild. They're crazy. Well, we have kids that have had that exact same situation, that their parents have died. We've had kids that have seen traumatic things. So this is a really good conversation for, so kids, make sure your parents hear this. For our parents not to judge what other people are doing, or why, why is this person even in karate when their behavior is not good? Well, you don't know maybe where they came from and what their background was. And all of a sudden you'll get a paradigm shift when you realize what it is, because I have seen that personally. And we have that in the studio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's true for anyone, anywhere that you go. Go ahead and mute yourself if you're unmuted, please. It's very true. Okay. So the next thing, whoever has written on the screen, please take it off. I mean, I can spend the time to go look at who it is and I can take you out of the meeting, but that's going to be time consuming for everybody and irritating. So whoever drew that heart, please take it off. Okay. Paradigms are inseparable from character. Being is seeing. I got to move this. And wait, being is seeing in the human dimension, and what we see is interrelated to what we are. Okay, so what he's saying with that is our perceptions of things, that's based off of who we are. If we are empathetic and understanding and have certain character traits, you're going to automatically have a certain perception. Okay, the way that you see the world is going to be different. So I don't know if you guys remember the story we talked about on Friday. We talked about a story where the author and his wife had a son that they felt like was falling short in a lot of different areas. And they were trying to fix him. And instead, they tried to see him differently. They tried to see his strengths differently. And so what he says in here when he's referring to that is he said, in order to see our son differently, we had to be different. So they had to change some of their core character traits in order to be the best parent for their son. And that's true with us with any paradigm shift. I know this weekend, Tegan's on here. She remembers we went to the beach yesterday. You can't tell I'm totally sunburned. I have a little bit of makeup covering it. But we went to the beach yesterday and we were trying to park. And so we see a lady pulling out and I asked her, hey, are you leaving? She was getting in her car. Hey, are you leaving? She said, yeah, you guys can park here. So we waited, we put on our blinker, we waited for her to leave. This guy pulled in, started to scoot in the spot as she was pulling out. So she leaned down and told him, she was like, hey, they're going in my spot. And he kind of waved her off. She backed up and tried to let me in. And he like jerked his car in super fast and sped into the spot. And so Tegan was like, why did that man do that? That was so rude. And I explained to, like, we sat down and we had a conversation about it. I'm like, well, we didn't know what happened to that man today. Maybe he just had 3 other people do that to him. Or maybe he's been having a really, really bad day and he's really upset or whatever, trying to be understanding. But what most people in that situation would do is they would get really mad at that man. They would get out and they would start yelling. The lady actually pulled out to let me, and she got out and started yelling at him. And me and Tegan, we drove off and we went about our day. But and there's so many different situations where, in every situation, everywhere you go, everything you do, you have perceptions of things and you set paradigms. So if you start to see that your paradigms are not in the right place, then you might need to look at, what can I fix about myself? What about my character? All right. Okay, so who wants to tell me, how do you think he felt after hearing the situation, after hearing what the kids and the man had been through? How do you think the author felt?
Yeah, actually, I'm working with David
Ma'am?
Hardy to get those cleaned up now.
Go ahead. I can't see everybody, so just go ahead and unmute yourself and share.
Wanting to help.
I think he felt pretty bad, like after he heard what the man and his kids had been through. Like, because if I had just heard that somebody's wife had died and their kids were running around having going through some mood swings because they just lost their mom, I'd feel really sad and sorry for him.
Yeah, so he probably felt some empathy. He probably felt bad for having said something or for having made an assumption too, right? Good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Weston. Ms. Taffy, do you want to add
You're
stuff?
Yes, ma'am. I think he probably would have felt a lot of shame for, having found out that he made the suggestion and then finding out the whole situation. I mean, he probably would have felt a lot of kind of shame and disappointment in himself, finding out the whole story, and then switch to empathy as to, what can I do now to help? But, with a paradigm shift, you see a situation one way and you think, oh, this guy's just lazy. And then you realize, well, he's not even there right now mentally. He's trying to focus on everything else that's going on in his world and trying to figure out how he's now going to, live the rest of his life without his child's mother and his wife and, everything else that now he has to plan a funeral and, just trying to get through the next few hours and then the rest of his life without his partner, and that's where
he went majorly from being irritated and upset at this guy to so much sadness and empathy and understanding and wanting to help. Immediately shifted to, how can I help this man? Yeah, exactly. Good. Okay, let's see. Let me get back to this. Okay, so some people, the author even mentions this, some people would have just been sensitive from the very beginning. So there are some people, now I think a lot of people would have went to that irritation just like he did. I think some people would have handled it worse, would have maybe been rude to the man or rude to the kids or that kind of thing. But there are some people who have those character traits who would have been understanding, empathetic, maybe try to think, well, what could the situation be before ever responding to it? Maybe trying to offer some help before jumping to any assumptions. But we did mention this, his paradigm and his perception changed completely once he understood the situation. Okay, the principle-centered paradigm. All right, so the character ethic is based on the idea that there are principles that govern human effectiveness and that these principles can shift your perspective. So there's another story in here. Who read the story of the battleships? Okay, I like this one. This one I thought was kind of funny. So I'm going to read this one to you guys. So it's a little bit lighter than that last one. All right. 2 battleships assigned to training to the 2 battleships assigned to the training squadron had been at sea on maneuvers in heavy weather for several days. I was serving on the lead battleship and was on watch on the bridge as night fell. The visibility was poor with patchy fog, so the captain remained on the bridge, keeping an eye on all activities. Shortly after dark, the lookout on the wing of the bridge reported, light bearing on the starboard bow. Is it steady or moving astern? The captain called out. Lookout replied, steady, captain, which meant we were on a dangerous collision course with that ship. The captain then called to the signalman, signal that ship. We are on a collision course. Advise you change course 20 degrees. And they received a signal back. Advisable that you change course 20 degrees. The captain said, send, I am a captain, change course 20 degrees. And he got a message back. I am a seaman second class, came the reply. You had better change course 20 degrees. By that time, the captain was furious. He spat out, send, I am a battleship, change course 20 degrees. And then he received a message back. I am a lighthouse. And so they changed their course. So this, if the captain thinks his perception is that he is looking, he sees a light, he assumes it's another ship, okay? So his paradigm is that there's another ship heading towards them. They're heading in the same directions and one of them needs to move. He's a captain. The other guy is a seaman second class, which means he's beneath him. So the captain would be able to give the orders for them to move, right? And he thinks this person is just being rude and not listening to his authority. And he gets very, very upset. Well, it's not a boat that has the option to move. It's a lighthouse. Can a lighthouse move? No. So he's like yelling at the person running a lighthouse, telling him to move, thinking he's being rude. And as soon as he realizes it's a lighthouse, his paradigm completely shifts. Okay, well, that was the question. So what do you think? Why don't you guys tell me? I just kind of said it, but what was the paradigm shift in that story? Somebody go ahead and unmute yourself and tell me what it was. I just gave you the answer, so it should be really easy.
The guy got mad, so he told him orders and he got really upset. Then the person in the lighthouse said, no, I need you to move because I'm in the lighthouse and I cannot move.
Mm-hmm. And so once he realized it was the lighthouse, that was the paradigm shift, right? That's when he changed his understanding. Very good. Okay. All right, principles. So we're talking a lot about principles in this chapter, and he makes a point to say that they're ethical systems. So principles are ethical systems. So some examples of those are fairness, integrity or honesty, human dignity, service, quality or excellence, potential, patience, nurturance, and encouragement. Those are all ethical systems and principles. Principles are not practices. So a principle is not something that someone can just tell you to do, okay? We have our 7 tenets in karate, right? Now it takes, you guys learn those 7 tenets. First time you come in the door, they're hung on the wall. Every white belt who comes in sees them, hears them. Every time, everyone, by the time they get to green belt, knows those 7 tenets. But do most green belts live by all of those 7 tenets? Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Most of them start to, they're trying to, but they might be able to say what they are and even know what they are, but it takes years of developing those principles, those ethical systems before they become a core part of who you are. So it's not like a practice. It's not like learning a low block where I can be like, hey, this is how you do a low block. Go ahead and do it. I can't do that. I can't say, this is what integrity means. Do it. And you instantly know, like instantly integrity is a part of who you are. It takes developing your character and really building that. Okay. So he says, when these truths are internalized into habits, they empower people to create a wide variety of practices to deal with different situations. Oh, and I wanted to, with that, I kind of wanted to go back and talk about some of the guest speakers we have. They talked about all of these things that they learned from martial arts, but they were not things, they were not like learning, they weren't talking about learning the forms. Did anybody mention the techniques that they learned? No, they all talked about the leadership they learned, the confidence that they learned, the perseverance that they learned. Those are principles. Those are ethical systems. Those are core habits that they become a part of who you are. And then you use those in any situation you're in. A low block you can only use in a couple situations, right? It has to be a physical altercation to need a low block. But perseverance, you're going to need that in a physical altercation. You're going to need that when you're in college. You're going to need that when you're in high school. You're going to need that in karate. You're going to need that in any other sports you do, in playing an instrument, in your career, and climbing the ladder and going into management. You're going to need that perseverance. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the principles, not the practices. So kind of like saying our tenets, not the techniques. Okay. He also says principles are not values. They are, so going back to the map reference, principles are the territory. The values are the maps. So having the integrity is like being Florida, right? And the map, the overview of it is the value. So saying integrity is integrity, but actually having integrity is the territory. All right, principles of growth and change. So we talked about the personality ethic on Friday a little bit. He says in here, it's like glittery and shiny and it looks fancy and it looks like it'd be a great option, but a lot of those are very shallow methods of developing character. So get rich quick things or wealth without actually putting in the work. So it's, you know, like I said, it takes years. It takes till black belt to have black belt excellence, right? To have the perseverance, the leadership, all of our 7 tenets, our 5 codes, all of those things. You can't do those in a day. You can't do those in one class. You can't do those in 1 year. So developing the 7 habits in this book it's a long process. This book is not talking about one little technique that you can start doing to be successful. It's talking about core ethics that you can develop, that'll take time to work on and to develop. But if you start being aware of those now and start working on those now, you will have. Somebody's unmuted. Please mute yourself. Okay. Starting a new goal always begins with the first step. So there's that quote, 1,000-mile journey begins with the first step. That's true for martial arts, and that's true for any new character trait you want to develop as well. Another good point that he makes in here, he says, if you don't let a teacher know at what level you are by asking a question or revealing your ignorance, you will not grow. This is really important with character ethics. If I sit here and I say, you know what, I am a very ethical person. I have integrity, I have concentration, I have perseverance, I have respect and obedience, I have self-control. I have all of those things. I don't need to work on any of them. I have no room to grow. I'm not giving myself any room to grow. Everybody has something that they could work on. Just like black belts, they continue to train because there's always an area to improve. And the first step of that, though, is being aware of that. So the first thing I want you guys to do is to think about what areas of your life that you could improve on. One thing he says here, too, is it's very obvious with tennis or piano or things like that. If you're not skilled, if you're not at an advanced level with those, you can tell. Who has ever tried to play a new instrument or play a new sport? Okay, so the first time you tried it, that very first day, was it obvious that you were at a beginner level? Yeah, even if you're naturally good at it, you're not professional, ready to go to the Olympics or whatever. But it's not quite as obvious when we're talking about character and emotional development. Your integrity, the first day you start working on your integrity, I can't look at you and say, yes, we need to work on your integrity. It's not as obvious. Now, there's certain situations where it might show, but it's not as obvious as a technique is. And I like looking at it like training, like martial arts. So it's really obvious when you have a new student on the mats, any beginner's class, you see everybody in the class needs to work on their front stances, their front kicks, their side kicks. The technique is obvious, but the character development, one kid might need to work on their focus. One kid might need to work on their respect. One kid might need to work on their confidence. That's different for everybody, and it's not quite as obvious. So I want you guys to really think about what areas you need to grow in. Okay. He talks about in this chapter, the way that we see the problem is the problem. So I'm going to go back.
Bye.
Oh, I'm not going to go through this too quickly. Or I'm going to go through this really quickly. I'm just going to give you guys one of the examples because we have class starting in a second. But he talks about all the questions that he listed in the first of the book that we talked about on Friday. And then he talks about them. So he's saying in the one that talks about he was worried about his managers not being independent or responsible or things like that. He says, okay, the personality ethic tells me that, you know, so the short term, the shallow thing says you need to shake it up, get everybody excited. But is it possible that we need to look at the deeper down what the problem is and seeing if maybe they're being disloyal because of something that you're doing? And that's what all of these are. So that was the homework assignment I gave you guys the other day, was to try to think of a problem and look at what the shallow, the personality fix would be, and then look deeper at what's something you could do to change that. A new level of thinking. So he says the significant problems we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them. So if you have a problem, that's what all of the problems that he lists, when he gives, you know, something you could do to fix them, he's looking deeper. He's looking further internally at what you could do deep down to fix the problem permanently instead of just putting a Band-Aid on it. I kind of just already mentioned that. And I already mentioned this. So this book is based around an inside out approach to personal and interpersonal effectiveness. So instead of saying, here's something you could do to be better, he's saying, these are some character traits that we can develop to be better in the future. And that's what this is talking about as well. Okay. Here's a quote on the last page of that chapter, and I'm going to go to your guys' homework. So if you have not read this chapter, go ahead and read the chapter. This is the homework assignment I gave you guys Friday. So if you have not done that yet, go ahead and do it. Write down one problem that you have in your life, whether it's virtual schooling, getting straight A's, getting exercise every day. You feel like your child's not listening. You feel like your parents aren't listening. You feel like your friend doesn't listen. Whatever, any problem in the world that you have. And I want you to write down what the personality ethics fix would be. So the short term, really fast, quick fix that might not last. And then I want you to try to look deeper. What could I do? How could I be different to fix this problem? Okay, so you guys are going to get a star if you do that. Tomorrow we're going to discuss it. So I hope everybody does that. The other thing I want you guys to do is write down an example of a paradigm shift. So a time that when you really understood something, your perception of it changed. Okay, so write that down. Everybody write it down, because this is your homework. And what we're going to spend time doing tomorrow during Match Chat is discussing the homework that everybody did. Okay, so write down one problem you have, give a personality fix and a character fix. Then write down one time that you had a paradigm shift. Or if you can't think of a time that you've had one, make up a story. Come up with an example of a paradigm shift. Okay, so 2 things, and then read the chapter, flip through it if you have not done that yet. All right, we're going to go ahead and go because class should have started 1 minute ago. If you guys have any questions, feel free to call the studio. I'll be here. Bye, you guys. Have a good day.
Don't forget Buddy Day, guys.
Bye.